Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something truly incredible, a fascinating blend of ancient history and modern empirical science. We are exploring the miracle of Zamzam. You see, this isn't just a story about water. It's a profound study of an ancient spring that has shaped history, sustained massive populations, and as we're going to see, completely holds up to rigorous scientific scrutiny today. So let's get right into it.
I want you to think about this for a second. How does a single, solitary desert spring sustain literally millions of people for over 4,000 years? Just let the sheer scale and longevity of that sink in. We aren't talking about a massive rushing river or a giant lake in a temperate climate. We're talking about a highly localized water source in one of the harshest, most arid environments on the entire planet. To really understand how this is even possible, we need to trace its origins, unpack its history, and look closely at its highly unique chemical makeup.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Genesis in a barren valley, then move to The Spring Emerges, trace a 4,000-year chronology, dive into the science of Zamzam, check out a unique mineral profile, and finally, explore its enduring spiritual grace.
Section 1. Genesis in a barren valley, a mother's ultimate reliance.
Picture this. You're standing in a completely desolate, lifeless, mountainous basin in ancient Mecca, historically known as Bakka. No water, no vegetation. Just dry, baking heat. This is the intensely unforgiving environment where, by divine mandate, the prophet Ibrahim, or Abraham, was commanded to leave his wife Hagar and their infant son Ishmael. The stakes literally couldn't be higher here. We're talking absolute, terrifying isolation.
But this right here brilliantly illustrates the profound human element of our story. When Ibrahim was preparing to depart, Hagar asked him, "Has God commanded you to do this?" When he said yes, her response was just absolutely incredible. She said, "Then he will not abandon us." You see, the crucial point is that this isn't just some old historical footnote. It's a foundational moment of complete, absolute reliance on divine intervention when faced with an utterly impossible, life-threatening situation.
All right, Section 2. The spring emerges, the desperate struggle.
Well, the harsh reality of the desert set in pretty much immediately. Their meager provisions ran out fast in that punishing heat. Infant Ishmael starts weeping from severe thirst, and driven by pure, desperate maternal instinct, Hagar starts running frantically back and forth between two rocky hills, Safa and Marwa. 7 times she runs this route, desperately scanning the empty horizon for passing caravans, nomads, just any sign of life. And what's wild is that this huge display of resilience and faith, known as the Sai, is still physically commemorated every single year by millions of pilgrims today during the Hajj and Umrah.
But spoiler alert, help didn't come from a passing caravan. The narrative tells us that while infant Ishmael cried, kicking his little heels against the parched earth, the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, descended. By divine decree, he scraped the sand with his wing, and right there, right in the dust of this desolate wilderness, a sweet, pure spring of abundant water literally burst forth from the ground.
Now, I love this part. The linguistic history behind the name is fascinating. When that precious water burst out, Hagar was naturally terrified it would just run off and soak right back into the porous desert sand. So she frantically starts building a little circular barrier out of sand and stones to corral it, shouting Zom, Zom, which translates to contain itself or stop flowing. Prophet Muhammad actually shared a beautiful reflection on this moment. He said, "May Allah have mercy on Hagar. Had she left the water, Zamzam would have been a flowing stream on the earth." How amazing is that?
Moving on to Section 3. A 4,000-year chronology, tracing the path.
So let's zoom out and look at the timeline. We kick things off around 2000 BCE when this miraculous spring first pops up, bringing life to Mecca and drawing in traveling Arab tribes. But, history is never a straight line. Fast forward to roughly 150 BCE, and Mecca's facing war. The residing Jurhum tribe is forced to flee. And get this, before they leave, they actually bury the well beneath the desert floor to hide it. It stays completely lost for centuries. It wasn't until the 6th century that Abdul Muttalib, the prophet's grandfather, has a vivid dream that guides him to successfully excavate it again. And today, in the modern era, this ancient well is hooked up to sophisticated pipelines and state-of-the-art labs, pumping sterile, fresh water out to the entire globe.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit for Section 4, the science of Zamzam, examining the composition.
Let's dig into the baseline data here, because this is where the empirical science gets really cool. Modern studies prove that Zamzam water is naturally alkaline, hovering right around a pH of 7.9 to 8.0. And here's the kicker. It maintains that perfect, healthy pH without a single drop of artificial chemical modification. None. Plus, rigorous lab testing shows absolutely zero trace elements of toxic heavy metals. It is just incredibly pure, straight from the source.
And that brings us to another absolute marvel. If you've ever managed well water, you know that over time, typical wells almost always grow algae and subterranean vegetation. It's basically unavoidable. But the Zamzam well? Zero signs of biological growth. It has maintained absolute taste stability for centuries. Why does it do that? Well, it turns out the water naturally contains significant levels of fluorides that act as a continuous germicidal and antifungal agent. It literally has its own built-in natural defense system, keeping it completely free from pathogens.
Section 5. A unique mineral profile. Immediate rehydration.
Now let's compare Zamzam to typical urban tap water. Look at these massive spikes. Sodium is sitting at 133.5 milligrams per liter compared to a measly 20 in tap water. Calcium is off the charts at 96.0 compared to just 15, and magnesium, 38.9 compared to 5. This ultra-rich mineral profile, especially those huge boosts in calcium and magnesium, is exactly why Zamzam immediately rehydrates and refreshes exhausted pilgrims after they've been walking in the blistering sun. It's essentially nature's ultimate, highly potent electrolyte drink.
And finally, Section 6, Enduring Spiritual Grace, a Cure and a Blessing.
Because science is still actively studying this water today, modern clinical studies are actually pointing to some really fascinating potential therapeutic traits. Researchers are observing it working as a metabolic booster. They're seeing potential drops in uric acid levels in the body, and they're even documenting distinct tissue protective properties. It's this ongoing area of scientific wonder that perfectly mirrors the ancient spiritual reverence for the spring.
Which brings us to our final thought. The Prophet Muhammad once said, "The best water on earth is Zamzam. In it is food for the hungry and a cure for the sick." When you take a step back and look at this seamless, thousands-year-old intersection we've explored today, from a mother's desperate, unwavering faith in a totally barren desert, all the way to the remarkable molecular science and rich mineral makeup proven by modern labs, you really have to ask yourself, how many things in all of human history have endured so perfectly, completely untouched by time, still quenching the hearts and bodies of millions every single day? It's a pretty incredible reality to ponder. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.